special story, bro. I was at work today. I learned about this dude named Christian Jaburke. This dude right here, 19 years old, 18, 19, man, he had a hell of a plan. He had a hell of a plan. Man. He had a hell of a, you know what I mean? Hell of a plan. So my man, listen. Now I don't own the rights. I hope I'm not violating anything, but we're going to give it. Definitely.
Dr. Shaham Das. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist in London. I assess mentally disordered offenders. I also work as an expert witness, so I give evidence in criminal trials all across the UK. CrimeCon is coming to.
On the South Carolina side, on a Friday afternoon in October 1995, Parker and Brenda Shaw returned home with their granddaughter, Brianna. They watched Brianna on Friday afternoons when her mother, Amy Shaw, worked late as a bank teller. Parker tried to open the garage, but the remote door opener wasn't working. Not knowing someone was there, he went in the house to open the garage from inside.
Get the link. Click that link. Well, let me see. Can I bring you in? I send it to your message. I send it to your message. I sent it to the message. The inbox. Check the inbox, bro. Yeah. So what? All of my podcasts, all of my fans. So what? Yeah, man. Click the link right quick. I'll bring you in, bro. Test run right here. Test run. Right about Christian Jaburke. I'm gonna tell you. Tap in. Gonna bring you in. As long as I can try to bring you in. Yeah, man, just check the inbox, man. Click the link. So you can come in my live feed. Yeah, man. Definitely. That I might. Man. I got a baby on the way. Shout out to Pat Pat. Got a baby on the way. So, hey, man, you get the link. What's up, God? What's up, God? This episode right here, but this nigga, this young black man named Christian Jaburke, bro. Him and his homeboys robbed the bank, right? This shit. Shot, where you go, shot? Shot Bubba. They robbed the bank, right? Let's play this in the backstory. What's going on? Give a little backstory.
The two intruders quickly bound Parker with duct tape, then forced him into the bedroom. Outside, Brenda got tired of waiting. With Brianna, she began to walk towards the front door.
You feel me?
When the garage finally opened,
Let's go inside. This ain't no game, lady. Let's go. I ain't playing with you. Let's go. Come on, move it. Move it. Let's go. Come on. Upstairs, lady. Let's go. Let's go.
the man forced Brenda into the bedroom, where her husband was being held by the other two intruders.
What's up, my world?
The gunman stole money and credit cards from the frightened couple.
Yo.
But then the one who was clearly the leader announced he had really come for the Shaw's daughter, Amy, and the money at her bank. They would wait for her. The armed intruders held the Shaws for more than an hour.
Hey, listen. I'm talking about, man, listen. They had it planned out, man. They fucked the lick up. I don't condone none of this shit, man. That shit just crazy. I can be like, dang, I couldn't believe boy 19-year-old. He was in Black Houdini, bro. He was straight from jail. This boy was out here trying to get his freedom. They couldn't keep him down. They could not. I swear they couldn't keep that boy down. I swear. I swear, boy, that shit crazy. I'm trying to make sure y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me out there? Oh, y'all definitely can hear me. Oh, y'all definitely can hear me. What can y'all hear both, bro? Y'all hear both.
The leader grabbed Amy. He told her he had been watching them for some time. He knew their schedules, when they were vulnerable, everything.
Hey, Shot Buffalo, where you go, God?
He began interrogating Amy about the security system at the bank.
Hey, listen. They was on some other shit.
From her training, she knew it was best to comply with the demands. She said she could.
In this moment right here, what would y'all do? What would y'all do in this moment right here? We're going to pause it right quick. Hold on. We're going to pause it right quick. Pause right quick. Hold up. Listen, man. This shit, I was like, damn, I don't know what made these boys do this, but they from Augusta. Hold up. Make sure I'm, I was somewhere in South Carolina, Augusta, Georgia, some kind of border down there. But they was out to get it. They had home. There was some boys on. 19 years old. He actually left. I don't want to call them fun dummies, but they end up being fun dummies. And they end up really getting everybody all the time. I'm sorry the people had to go through that, man. I heard they had to go through that shit, bro. But he was young, though. He got life in prison. And he turned up once he feel like it was over. We're going to get back to it, bro. Let's get back to it. Listen, man, this story is just basically crazy, man. It's crazy. Anybody want to tap in? I see your inbox. You know what I mean? You see your inbox. but listen, I don't know why he did that. He should never did that. He should never did that. He never did none of this shit though. But when you young and dumb, you just don't know. You know what I mean? When you're young and dumb, you just don't know, man. You just don't know. Man, she tried to, but you can't be playing with your people's life, though. I'm saying, I feel it, though. I feel it. Definitely. Oh, oh. See these ads. You got to see these ads. I don't own the right to these ads. I did not want the ad to pop up. But we're gonna cut that out. We're gonna cut that out. Right? You couldn't open it up alone. What would you be doing in this moment right here? Man, listen, young man, y'all need to think about this before y'all do this shit. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. A lot of fucking time. Come with this shit. Hey, listen, make sure you go to YouTube, like, subscribe, and share, man. You know what I mean? Definitely don't own the rights to this. Uh, hey, how y'all doing out there? Man, I'm trying to um what is going on right now? What's going through their mind? What y'all think going through their mind? Oh, okay. That's what's up. got off with $86,000. He should have left, man. But guess what? His mom Duke convinced him to turn himself in. He should never did that shit. He should never did none of it. Let's get that straight. Because I don't agree with crime. No. Not at this age stage in my life. You know what I mean? Oh, you can't hear me? Can't hear me, God? What the hell happened? I don't know what the hell happened. You gotta charge your phone. Man, listen, man, you ain't ready, man. Who tapping in? Where y'all at? Christopher Burke, man. Shout out that man. Listen, man. I think he was just so young, man. Like he just kept doing. He was just so far under. And the way you can't hear me. Hold on, did they cut me out? Oh Lord, hold on. Oh, I gotta stop this. Hold on. That's crazy. Let's pause this. Pause this. Can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me? Oh my God. You definitely can hear me. You can't hear me. Yo. Yeah, you definitely can. Oh Lord. Hold on. Yeah, man, listen. Uh, I'm still learning. This is a test anyway. You know what I mean? Test. Definitely test. But, shit. Oh, you here at 9:24? That man crazy. Damn, my bad. My bad, God. You know I'm always live. Oh, you can't hear me. Oh, okay. You can't hear me no more. Hold up. Go back. Yep, yep. But now back to let me get back to the shit. Get back to yeah, man. this young man right here, man, he moving too hard, too fast for me. Can you hear the? I mean, cause I don't know. Can you hear me now, cuz? Can you hear me now?
A resident agency arrived to interview
But anyway,
She tried to get him into a position where the camera may take a photograph of him. As it turns out, the camera was activated only when one puts one's card into the machine, so that didn't work.
the cameras inside didn't catch him either.
oh, you
At the
can
North
definitely hear
Augusta
me now.
crime scene, investigator Bullock arrived and was
So
briefed on
I
the
know
search
my
for
bad,
evidence.
cuz. Can you hear both of them, cuz?
Technicians
it
from
now.
the South
Can I
Carolina
hear my?
law
Yeah, I
enforcement
could
division
definitely hear it
found
now.
oily shoe
You feel
prints
me?
on the garage floor and
Cause I'm
photographed
learning.
them
I'm
for
learning how to
future
play this shit without
comparison
the Bluetooth.
if suspects
I'm
were
playing
located.
actual live video footage and talking to y'all guys at the same time. I'm really excited.
From inside the house,
Oh, it's very. The video
technicians
can hear
recovered a
clear.
single
Okay,
cartridge from the bullet fired in the
oh,
living room.
I'm not violating YouTube policies or whatever. But
It
I
was
don't
from a
own the rights.
.38 caliber handgun, but had no prints on
What
it.
up, Daryl? Okay.
Attempts to recover the assailant's fingerprints elsewhere failed as well, since they had worn gloves throughout the crime.
All the way up.
At the top of the driveway, investigators located a vehicle stuck in a ditch.
I'm gonna send you a link in a minute.
The two suspects, when they left the house, they were going to take a
We'll set
car,
up a date.
and they got
We
the
ain't gonna
key
do it
from
when
the
I'm live
victims in the
still
house. In their haste to back out of the driveway, they backed into a ditch and could not get the car out of the ditch, so they left on foot.
I know how to send them links out now.
The technicians recovered foreign fingerprints from the vehicle.
Hey, listen, some more there.
More evidence to compare to any later
Listen
suspects.
to this though. They had it all planned out right too.
Nearby, they located several items they believed had been dropped by the fleeing gunman. There were several weapons, including a shotgun and a .357 Magnum.
Yes, cuz. Thank you, cuz. Thank you, cuz. I love you, cuz. Thank you, cuz.
Clothes, masks, and gloves found in the bushes matched what the assailants reportedly had worn.
Yeah. Reportedly had.
Without the clothes, police didn't have much of a description of the suspects.
Reportedly.
They updated the already vague APB. 3 African-American males, 2 probably on foot, 1 in a dark blue sedan, armed and considered dangerous.
They end up being right.
In 1995, South Carolina and Georgia authorities sought 3 masked men who held the Shaw family hostage and robbed a bank. Within an hour of the 911 call, an off-duty deputy was en route to the Shaw house when he heard the revised APB. He spotted 2 men, roughly fitting the description, walking away from the neighborhood where the Shaws lived.
Hey guys.
The deputy questioned the pair, according to Sheriff's investigator Don Bullock.
They asked him what they were doing there, and they said, we were up at the church playing basketball, and they had no basketball and no transportation.
Backup soon arrived. The deputies knew the church mentioned had no lights on its basketball
Shout out
court.
to my Phillions, man. Check me out on Spotify, Apple
And
Music.
being that time of night, it was dark, the
Amazon
red
Music.
flags just flew up. It was, you know, he put 2 and 2
This is
together.
crazy, man. I was watching the day they took the park. I was like, he had they said he's the mastermind.
The young men agreed to go to
He
a
probably
police
got this shit off
staging
a
area
movie.
near the Shaw House for further questioning.
He did the same shit he seen on fucking movie.
They were identified as Daniel Evans and Lamarco Roscoe.
Did something. He Scarface. Shit I
At
see
the
on
bank,
TV,
FBI Special Agent Jerry Jones received word of the two men in custody.
We gotta let them know that we gotta let them know that shit ain't real all the
I
time.
elected to leave the bank because the victim teller was comfortable and secure. So I left the bank and went over to South Carolina to interview the two suspects.
Jones made it to the police staging area about the same time as the suspects. He and Sheriff's investigator Kenneth Booz knew that with more than one suspect involved, it was best to talk to them separately.
We separated them because most of the time they'll start breaking down, but they'll start wondering what the other suspect has told us. When they start realizing that the other one might be talking, then they want to be the first one to get on the bandwagon and start cooperating.
The men had been unable to give details about the church where they had allegedly been playing basketball. And investigators sensed they were involved in the crime. Special Agent Jones began with Lamarco Roscoe.
You develop a concept of what their greatest fear is, some weakness they may have in their past or their family or something of that sort. And in this particular case, it was fear of the death penalty that got Roscoe's attention.
Jones knew Amy Shaw was safe, but gambled that Roscoe did not. He told him his primary concern was Amy's safety.
I told him that he needed to know that if the third robber killed her, that he would face the electric chair for his complicity in the robbery. So everything I told him was the truth. My primary interest was the safety and welfare of the victim teller. And it is true that had the third robber killed Amy Shaw, they would both have faced the death penalty.
The suspect soon admitted his involvement in the crime. When asked for the name of the leader of the group, he said he only knew him by his first name, Chris, and believed his last name started with a J.
Another law enforcement officer who was familiar with a number of ne'er-do-wells in the Augusta area recognized the name and actually asked if that was in fact Christopher Jaburke, which he replied that it was.
Jones then interviewed the second suspect, Daniel Evans.
I told him that his accomplice had already confessed, and he immediately began to tell me the story of what happened that night. I wanted him to confirm the name of the third suspect without prompting, and he immediately gave up Christopher Jaburke by name.
In talking to Roscoe and Evans, investigators realized the two were obviously the followers, and Jaburke was in charge.
They weren't the masterminds.
Everybody signed up for this shit. Hold up. I'm gonna run that back to y'all a little bit. This way. My bad. Can y'all hear that now?
Without the clothes, police didn't have much of a description of the suspects.
Yo, yo. Most definitely. Appreciate you, cuz. this crazy ass shit. I want y'all to watch this shit right quick. My bad, my bad. Man, can y'all still hear the music? Yeah.
And Jones began with Lamarco Roscoe.
You develop a concept of what they're going.
Y'all listen, hold on right quick. Hold on. That's what that is.
Knew Amy Shaw was safe, but gambled that Roscoe did not. He told him his primary concern was Amy's safety.
I told him that he needed to know that if the third robber killed her, that he would face the electric chair for his complicity in the robbery. So everything I told him was the truth. My primary interest was the safety and welfare of the victim teller. And it is true that had the third robber killed Amy Shaw, they would both have faced the death penalty.
The suspect soon admitted his involvement in the crime. When asked for the name of the leader of the group, he said he only knew him by his first name, Chris, and believed his last name started with a J.
He admitted.
Another law enforcement officer who was familiar with a number of ne'er-do-wells in the Augusta area recognized the name and actually asked if that was in fact Christopher Jaburke, which he replied that it was.
Yeah, yeah. Getting this shit now.
Jones then interviewed the second suspect, Daniel Evans.
I told him that his accomplice had already confessed, and he immediately began to tell me the story of what happened that night. I wanted him to confirm the name of the third suspect without prompting, and he immediately gave up Christopher Jaburke by name.
It's growing every day.
In talking to Roscoe and Evans, investigators realized the two were obviously the followers, and Jaburke was in charge.
See how they do it?
They weren't the masterminds of this bank robbery. They were, in my opinion, they were mastermind stooges. They didn't appear to have much knowledge of what was going on, except for they had been with Jaburke several times in the past few days, looking at different banks, coming up with different plans on how to pull this one off.
When he was finished with the preliminary interviews, Jones learned a pager number had been recovered from one of the suspects. He asked an officer to call the number. When the return call came back, the officer identified himself. The caller said his name was Chris Jaburke. When asked, he said he was 100 miles away in Mount Vernon, Georgia. Jaburke was defensive and asked the officer if he was being accused of something. Then he hung up. Investigators headed for Jaburke's house right away.
As it turns out, law enforcement was very familiar with Christopher Jaburke and knew where the residence was without any prompting.
If he was the lead kidnapper, he now knew police were looking for him. And with a head start and $86,000 in cash, Christopher Jaburke could be anywhere.
I know a couple people like this, but
In October 1995, authorities were seeking Christopher Jaburke, wanted for armed kidnapping and bank robbery.